They called me the charity case before I even sat down. I heard it from across the table, not whispered, but clear enough to sting. The chandelier light caught every smirk, every glass raised in pretend grace. Monica leaned back in her chair, voice sweet and sharp. "This table's for real family, not for foster beggars." Laughter rippled through the restaurant, polished and cruel. I felt my face heat, but my hands stayed still. Then the waiter came laying a $2,900 bill in front of me like a dare. I slid my card across the linen, one quiet motion that changed everything. People said I was lucky. After my parents died in a car crash, I wasn't sent to a foster home. I was taken in by family friends Linda and Charles Hale. They smiled through every interview, told neighbors they were doing the right thing. And for a while, I believed them. I was 5 too small to notice the difference between kindness and charity. They gave me a tiny room at the end of the hall, painted pale yellow, like it might make up for the size. I got Monica's old clothes, Ethan's cracked textbooks, and a reminder that I should be grateful. "You're part of this family now," Linda would say, her voice tight with virtue. "Remember we saved you." Even then, I understood it wasn't love, it was a favor they never let me forget. The Hale house always looked perfect from the outside. White shutters rose, bushes trimmed to military precision, a driveway where Charles's luxury cars gleamed under morning light. Inside, though, the air was stiff. Every compliment had a price. Every family dinner felt like a performance. They prayed before meals, thanked God for blessings, then spent the rest of the evening measuring who deserved them more. Monica, 5 years older, was the star they built their world around. She had straight-A grades designer shoes and a laugh that could flip from charming to cruel in a heartbeat. Ethan, the middle child, followed her like a shadow. And me, I was the quiet one at the far end of the table, careful not to scrape my fork too loud. The only person who treated me like I belonged was Margaret Hale, Charles's mother. She was in her 70s when I met her, sharp as glass and twice as clear. She built Hale and Cumbie Pharmaceuticals from nothing, made her first million before Linda finished college. But she never acted like money made her better. She'd show up on Sundays with a box of pastries and that piercing, assessing look. "You read much, Violet?" she asked me once. I nodded. Good. People who read learn how to survive quiet rooms. She was the only one who noticed the quiet. By the time I turned 28, I'd moved into a small apartment downtown and started my own design studio. It wasn't much, one desk, one computer, a view of a brick wall, but it was mine. I'd stopped waiting for the Hale family to see me. Still, I kept visiting Margaret. She'd call me her sensible granddaughter, and for a few hours, her living room felt like safety. Then Monica announced her celebration dinner, a victory party for a business deal. She posted the invite in the family group chat, the one I was still somehow in. "Everyone's coming," she wrote. The photo attached showed a glittering restaurant and a caption, "Family only." I stared at it for a long time, thumb hovering over my phone. Then I typed, "Should I still come?" and hit send. No one replied. The silence in that group chat stretched for days. No response, not even a polite emoji. Just seen. I told myself it didn't matter that I'd gotten used to being invisible. But every time my phone buzzed, a small part of me hoped it would be them, saying something kind. Something normal. It never was. 3 nights before the dinner, Linda called not to invite me, but to remind me about the dress code. "Monica's booked a private dining hall," she said, cheerful in that rehearsed way of hers. "Everyone's wearing black and gold. You'll want to look presentable." Presentable. The same word she used when she made me redo my hair for church as a child. I said I'd be there. Her relief was audible, as if avoiding embarrassment was all that mattered. When I hung up, I stood by the window watching snow collect on the streetlights. Margaret had told me once that snow has 2 faces, soft when it falls, deadly when it piles. I understood that better now. The next day, I stopped by Margaret's home. She was sitting by the fireplace, a thick shawl around her shoulders, a mug of tea in hand. "You're quiet," she said without looking up. I told her about the dinner. She didn't ask if I wanted to go. She just nodded slowly. "Let them show you who they are," she murmured. "Sometimes that's the only gift they can give." Her words stayed with me. The night before the dinner, Monica's posts started flooding my feed, photos of gift bags, champagne bottles, designer heels lined in rows. Her caption read, "Hard work pays off." Blessed to celebrate with the best family ever. My stomach tightened. The best family ever. I almost texted her to cancel to say I was busy, but I didn't. Instead, I took out the black dress I'd bought on clearance last year. I ironed it, repaired a loose hem, and laid it across my bed. Then I took my old leather bag, the same one I'd carried since college, and slipped in a simple silver bracelet Margaret had given me years ago. For luck, she'd said. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every memory came back birthday candles I wasn't allowed to blow out holidays, where my name was forgotten on gift tags. By morning, the decision felt final. I'm going, I whispered to my reflection. Not for them, for me. The restaurant glowed like it was built to impress. Warm, light white linen, the faint scent of truffle oil in the air. I arrived a few minutes early, clutching my small purse tighter than I meant to. A hostess smiled politely. "Party for Hale?" she asked. I nodded. When I reached the table, they were already there. Monica in gold silk, Ethan scrolling his phone, Linda and Charles laughing too loud. For a second, no one looked up. Then Monica turned her lips curving just enough to sting. "Oh, Violet, you made it," she said, as if surprised I'd found the courage. "Of course," I answered, keeping my voice calm. "Wouldn't miss it." The hostess tried to add a chair, but Monica stopped her. "It's okay. She can sit at the end." I felt the heat rise up my neck. Margaret was the only one who objected. "No," she said firmly. "She'll sit next to me." Her tone silenced everyone. I smiled at her, grateful, and took my seat. Dinner began. Dishes arrived like choreography, lobster tails, filet mignon, glasses of wine I didn't order. I kept quiet, cutting my food into small, forgettable pieces. Across the table, Monica launched into a speech about her big deal, how she'd closed a partnership worth millions. Charles beamed proud. Linda dabbed her lips, saying, "That's our girl." When there was a pause, I spoke. Actually, I began softly. I just signed my biggest client yet, a national campaign. The words hung in the air, fragile but real. I waited for a simple, "That's great." Instead, Linda smiled without looking at me. "That's nice, dear," she said, turning to Monica again. "Now tell us more about your deal." The laughter that followed wasn't loud, but it was enough. The same tone, the same dismissal I'd grown up with. I focused on Margaret. She was quiet, her fork, untouched eyes moving from face to face. Her jaw tightened, though she said nothing. When dessert arrived, Monica raised her glass. "To family, real family," she said, staring directly at me. The others echoed, "To family." My throat burned. I took a sip of water, hands steady, even as my heart hammered. Somewhere inside, something finally shifted. Not a snap, but a slow, certain break. "I'm fine," I whispered to myself. "Just fine." The laughter around the table didn't sound human anymore. It was the sharp, empty kind people use to prove they belong. I stared at my glass, watching the reflection of the chandelier ripple across the water. Then Monica's voice cut through it again, sweet and venomous. "This table's for real family, not for foster beggars." The room went quiet for half a breath, then exploded with chuckles and smirks. Even Linda laughed the same high, nervous sound she used when pretending everything was fine. Charles didn't look at me. Ethan mumbled something under his breath, but I couldn't make it out. My cheeks burned, but I kept my head high. My voice didn't work, and maybe that was for the best. I pressed my napkin into my lap, careful, deliberate. Every muscle in my body screamed to leave, but leaving would mean they'd won. The waiter came by with a tight smile. "Will there be anything else?" Monica waved her hand. "Just the check, please." He returned a moment later and placed the leather folder in front of me. I blinked, thinking it was a mistake. Then Monica leaned forward, smiling wide enough for the whole restaurant to see. "You don't mind, right? Think of it as a thank you for everything we've done for you." The words hit like a slap. I looked down. The total, $2,900, nearly a month of my rent. My fingers trembled as I traced the number. No one spoke. No one stopped her. I could have said no. I could have walked out. But instead, I pulled out my card. The plastic felt cold in my palm. The waiter hesitated, glancing between us, sensing something wrong. I nodded. When the machine beeped, it echoed in my chest. One sharp sound, one transaction for 2 decades of humiliation. I set the pen down, slid the folder back, and folded my napkin over my empty plate. "All done," I said quietly. For a few seconds, it was completely still, just forks clinking in the distance, soft jazz from the speakers. Then out of nowhere, Margaret pushed back her chair. The screech of wood against marble turned every head. "I'm done?" she said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried. Linda laughed uneasily. "Mother, don't be dramatic." Margaret raised a hand. "No, I've watched this circus long enough." Her eyes went straight to Monica. "You, your father, your mother, you've all forgotten what decency looks like." Monica blinked, thrown off. "What are you talking about? We were just joking." "Joking?" Margaret's voice hardened. "You humiliate this girl, my granddaughter, in public, and for what?" To feel powerful for one more dinner, the color drained from Monica's face. "She's not your granddaughter." Margaret straightened her shoulders. "You're wrong. She's the only one who's ever acted like family." The table froze. Charles reached for his glass, missed it, and set his hand flat against the table instead. Linda tried to laugh again, but it broke halfway out. "I have cancer," Margaret said simply. "Stage 4. I have 6 months." The silence hit like thunder. Monica's mouth fell open. "Mom, no, save it." Margaret interrupted. "I'm not here for sympathy. I'm here for truth. I changed my will last week." She turned to me. "Violet inherits everything." The words didn't sink in at first. I thought I'd misheard. But when I looked at her, she was steady, certain. Monica shot to her feet. "You can't do that. That money belongs to this family." "Family." Margaret's eyes burned. "You mean the same people who stole $700,000 from a child's trust fund?" Linda's fork clattered to the table. "Mother, please, I found the records," Margaret continued. "Every cent Violet's parents left for her, gone. Spent on vacations, private school, new cars. You used her pain as your down payment." Charles slammed his palm down. "You don't understand how expensive. I understand perfectly," she cut in. "You took what wasn't yours." I sat frozen, heart racing. I hadn't known about the trust fund, hadn't known about any of it. The air thickened. Monica's lipstick trembled at the corners. Ethan stared down at his plate, silent for once. Margaret looked at me again. "Take me home, Violet." That broke the spell. Monica grabbed my arm. "You did this," she hissed. "You turned her against us." I pulled away, my voice low but clear. I didn't have to. "You did that yourself," she glared, shaking. "We'll challenge it. We'll go to court. You'll get nothing. Then I'll see you there," I said. I helped Margaret to her feet. Her hand felt fragile but steady in mine. We walked past the stunned table, past the staring faces of strangers. The music seemed to fade. Outside, the night air was cold, sharp, honest. Margaret squeezed my hand. "I should have done this years ago," she said softly. Inside, through the window, I could still see them. Monica red-faced and shouting, Linda holding her head, Charles waving for the waiter as if money could glue their dignity back together. I didn't feel triumphant. Not yet, just clean, empty in a way that finally made room for peace. Later that week, the news broke. Headlines screamed, "Heiress cuts off. Family leaves fortune to foster daughter." Reporters swarmed. Talk shows debated whether I'd manipulated her. I stayed silent. Margaret didn't. She held a press conference sitting tall beside her lawyer. "I am of sound mind," she declared, "and I'm tired of watching good hearts punished for existing." The cameras flashed. She handed out folders, bank statements, trust fund records, proof of every stolen cent. And then she played the video from the restaurant. Monica's voice echoed across the speakers. "This table's for real family, not for foster beggars." The room went dead silent. Margaret looked into the cameras. This is what cruelty sounds like when it thinks no one is listening. As if on cue, the doors burst open. Monica stormed in, mascara-streaked voice shaking. "She's lying. Violet used her. We raised that girl out of pity. She owes us." Reporters gasped. Cameras turned. Margaret tilted her head. "Did you just say she owes you? I mean, she..." Monica stammered, realizing too late. The lawyer leaned forward. "You just admitted it. On record." The clip hit the internet before nightfall. 20 million views by morning. The comments weren't kind. Imagine saying that on camera. Justice served in real time. By the time the trial came, public opinion had already chosen sides. The judge ruled the will valid, the trust fund stolen, the restitution owed. Margaret's decision stood. I didn't celebrate. I just sat beside her in the courtroom as she squeezed my hand again, whispering, "You see, silence works when truth is loud enough." A month later, she was gone. At her funeral, I placed a single white rose on her casket, the same color as the tablecloth from that night. For a moment, I closed my eyes and heard that same sharp beep from the credit card machine, but this time it didn't sting. It sounded like a door closing and another one opening. The world moved fast after the verdict, but I didn't. I stayed in Margaret's house, the one with the wide porch and the lemon trees she loved. It felt strange at first, living in silence that didn't hurt. The air smelled like her perfume and old books. Every morning I made tea the way she did, 2 sugars, no milk. Charles was sentenced to 3 years for financial fraud. Linda sold their house to cover legal fees, then vanished from the city pages. Ethan's loan surfaced. His fiancée left. Monica lost her business after that viral clip became an internet cautionary tale. Every brand cut ties overnight. Reporters tried to get a statement from me. I never gave one. There was nothing left to say. Justice, once it arrives, doesn't need an encore. I focused on work, then on something bigger. Using part of the inheritance, I started the Margaret Foundation, a program for foster and adopted kids who'd been cheated or silenced. We funded lawyers, therapy, tuition, everything I once needed, but never had. The first check I signed felt heavier than money. It felt like redemption. A year later, an application came across my desk, Monica Hale requesting assistance for financial hardship and mental health support. I read every word. She wrote that she'd lost everything, that she was sorry, that she wanted a second chance. For a moment, I thought about approving it. Then I remembered her voice at that table, how the laughter felt slicing through me like glass. I stamped the file, denied, and slid it aside. Some victories are quiet. Mine was. That night, I lit a candle for Margaret and whispered, "We did it." The flame flickered, once steady and bright, like she'd heard me. I visit her grave every Sunday. The grass grows fast there, soft against the marble, and the city noise fades just enough to think. I tell her about the foundation, about the kids we've helped, 200 and counting. Sometimes I imagine her smiling, that small knowing smile, the one that meant she'd already seen the ending before I lived it. People still ask if I forgave them. I tell them forgiveness isn't freedom, boundaries are. Family isn't who raised you. It's who never made you pay for a seat at the table. If you've ever had to fight to be seen, share your story in the comments. And hit subscribe, someone out there might need to hear yours next. My phone buzzed once, then went still. A text from my mother lit up the screen. "Elena, you don't need to come back. Some places aren't meant for you." No explanation, no call, just that line sharp as glass. I stared at it while the snow outside my window kept falling in slow, silent flakes. My coffee went cold in my hand. It was Thanksgiving week, the one time I always tried to make it home no matter how busy work got. The time I told myself maybe this year would be different. But I guess they'd already started the dinner without me. I opened my family group chat. Photos were flying in candles, turkey wine glasses raised high. Everyone tagged, everyone smiling. My name wasn't there. For a second, I thought maybe it was a mistake. Maybe she sent that text to the wrong person. Then I saw the caption under one of the photos, "Only family." That one hit harder than I want to admit. I scrolled up, reading her message again. It wasn't anger that came first. It was this deep, hollow quiet, the kind that sits right behind your ribs and doesn't move. You know that feeling when someone doesn't just shut you out of a room, but out of belonging itself. That's what it felt like. I set my phone down on the kitchen counter. The hum of the fridge was the only sound left in the apartment. Outside, the city lights were flickering across wet pavement. I could picture them, my mother at the head of the table, my father carving turkey, my brother Ryan cracking another stupid joke, everyone laughing like nothing ever happened. They probably told themselves I was too difficult, too sensitive to Elena. And maybe they were right. I'd stopped playing the part years ago, the quiet fixer, the peacekeeper, the one who always paid for the takeout and swallowed the insult. I walked to the window and watched a couple across the street carrying grocery bags, their breath fogging in the cold. The smell of pine candles drifted up from the hallway. It should have felt cozy, but all I could think was how far I drifted from what family was supposed to mean. I picked up my phone again. I almost typed back something, anything but the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I whispered it out loud, half to myself, half to the empty room. You said I didn't belong there. Fine. Then quieter, steadier. Like a promise, I'll build something you'll never forget. The city outside went still for a beat, as if it had heard me. If you've ever been shut out by your own family, you'll know that moment, the one where pain turns into something colder, cleaner. The start of a plan. When I was little, I used to draw houses instead of people. While other kids filled pages with stick figures, mine were covered in walls, windows, and staircases. I didn't think much of it back then, it was just how my brain worked. I liked the way things fit together, the quiet order of it all. My parents didn't see it that way. To them, creativity was a phase. Ryan, my younger brother, was the real achiever. He could skip homework, charm his teachers, and still get praised for potential. Me, I got called too serious for my age. I still remember the night it all started to shift. I was 15. I'd stayed up late in my room, sketching a greenhouse I wanted to design for our backyard glass walls, sunlight filtering through ivy, a small reading corner inside. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. The next morning, I slid the paper across the breakfast table like it was a gift. I think I could actually build this someday, I said, proud and nervous. My dad barely looked up from his newspaper. My mom laughed softly. Sweetheart, that's ambitious. But you might want to focus on something useful. Ryan leaned over, glanced at the drawing, and grinned. Looks like a fish tank for plants. They laughed together. I pretended to smile. That night, I found the paper in the trash under a pile of coffee grounds. That was the first time I learned silence could protect you. After that, I stopped showing them what I made. I got into a design program in college on scholarship. When I told Mom, she said, architecture. That's a man's world, honey. You're too sensitive for that. But I went anyway. I worked 3 jobs, slept on a futon in a drafty apartment, and lived off black coffee and bagels from the dollar rack. I thought maybe when they saw the degree, they'd finally see me. They didn't come to graduation. Ryan had a business trip, and Mom said, your dad's knees are bad for long flights. Still, I sent them photos of my first office space, a 1-room studio with a folding table, 2 monitors, and a plant I couldn't keep alive. Mom texted back, looks small but cute. I learned to stop needing their applause. But even when I tried to move on, their voices followed me. Ryan loved to call during family dinners on speakerphone, bragging about his real estate ventures. My mother would always laugh, you and your brother are both in buildings. How funny I'd smile and hang up the old ache settling in again. See, that's the thing about being the invisible one. You start building your whole life quietly foundation. First, brick by brick, until one day you realize you've built something solid while they're still talking about air. And all it takes is one insult. One push too far to make you see what your silence is really worth. The night it all snapped, I was sitting at my parents' long oak table, the one that had hosted every holiday dinner since I was a kid. The smell of roasted lamb and garlic butter hung in the air, the kind of scent that used to mean home. Not anymore. Ryan was at the head of the conversation as usual. He was talking about his new venture, a luxury bar he planned to open downtown. Everyone leaned in like he was giving a TED Talk. My mother looked at him like he'd just invented electricity. I kept my eyes on my plate, cutting my food into tiny, neat squares. So Ryan said, turning toward me, you know, construction. What do you think of my location idea, Midtown, right across from the new plaza? I glanced up. It's a risky spot, I said. High rent, low foot traffic after 9. You'd need a strong concept to keep it afloat. The room went quiet. Then Mom's voice, sharp smiling, cut through it. Elena, could you not? Your brothers worked hard on this. You always find something negative to say. My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. I wasn't being negative. I was giving Ryan interrupted with a smirk. She just doesn't get it, Mom. Not everyone wants to live in spreadsheets and blueprints. A few of our relatives laughed. One even clapped him on the shoulder. My chest tightened. I'm just saying, I tried again, but Mom's hand lifted slightly as if to silence me. Sweetheart, if you can't be supportive, maybe you should just enjoy your meal. That tone, the one that sounds polite to outsiders but cuts you clean on the inside. The rest of the table moved on without me. Ryan talked about his investors who I was sure were imaginary. My dad nodded like it all made perfect sense. My aunt poured more wine. I sat there small again, 15 years old, and watching my dream go into the trash all over again. When I finally stood up, the chair legs scraped hard against the tile. The noise made everyone look. I said, "You know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe I don't belong here." Ryan chuckled low and mean. "Guess that's finally sinking in." Mom's voice came calm and cold. "Elena, if you can't behave like family, then maybe you shouldn't come next time." I felt the words hit like a door slamming. I didn't say another thing. I just walked out my heels, clicking through the hallway I'd once memorized as a child. In the reflection on the glass door, I saw them still talking, still laughing as if I'd never been there. When I got to my car, my phone buzzed. A new text from Mom. "Don't come back until you learn how to respect your brother." I sat there in the cold screen glowing in my lap, breath fogging the windshield. That was the moment the warmth finally died, and in its place something colder started to build, something sharper, quieter, unbreakable. The first few days after that dinner, I didn't speak to anyone. Not my parents, not Ryan, not even Lydia, my business partner, and the one person who knew how to read my silences. I went through the motions at work, client meetings, project calls, endless site visits, but inside, everything felt muted, like I was walking underwater. Then one morning, I got an email that changed everything. A real estate group was selling a corner lot downtown, a wide piece of land, old brick walls still standing from a failed restaurant. The address stopped me cold. It was the same block Ryan had bragged about at dinner, Midtown across from the plaza, the one he'd called his spot. I sat staring at the screen until Lydia poked her head into my office. "You look like you've seen a ghost," she said. I turned the monitor toward her. "Do you remember that location Ryan wanted for his bar?" She squinted at the listing. "Yeah." "Why?" "Because it's available," I said quietly, "and I can afford it." She raised an eyebrow. "You're thinking about buying it." I didn't answer. Instead, I printed the listing, folded it neatly, and slid it into my notebook. That night, while the rest of the city was closing up shop, I drove down there. The street was half-empty, neon signs flickering from the diner across the road. I parked and walked the perimeter, my boots crunching on gravel hands, shoved deep in my coat pockets. The air smelled faintly of rain and old metal. I looked up at the exposed beams, the broken windows, the faint outline of what used to be a sign. I could almost see it already, glass walls, hanging gardens, a courtyard filled with light, a place that didn't need anyone's permission. By the end of the week, the offer was in. By the next month, it was mine. Construction started slow, then all at once. Early mornings at the site, steel groaning under welders' sparks, the taste of coffee turning bitter in my mouth as I reviewed blueprints at sunrise. Lydia would meet me with 2 cups, her hair tied up, grinning through exhaustion. "You're out building your ghosts," she said one morning, watching the first panels of glass rise into place. Maybe she was right. Every line I drew, every foundation poured, it was like rewriting a memory that used to hurt. A year passed in that rhythm. Work, build, refine. No family calls, no messages, just the steady sound of progress. When it was done, I stood inside the atrium at dawn, sunlight pouring through the glass ceiling. The air was cool and clean, echoing off marble floors. My reflection looked back at me, older, steadier, finally whole. We called it the Atrium by Voss. It wasn't spite, it was statement. My name, my work, standing tall on the skyline. A week before opening night, Lydia handed me a newspaper article. "Look," she said. "They're calling it the city's new landmark." I smiled, a real one this time. They said I'd never be invited again, and soon they'd be begging to get in. The night of the opening felt like standing at the edge of a new life. The atrium gleamed under soft amber light, every surface polished to reflection. Strings of jazz floated from the live band near the bar, mixing with the low hum of laughter and glasses clinking. It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like arrival. Guests poured in. Clients, friends, investors. I smiled, shook hands, accepted congratulations that sounded almost unreal. Lydia moved through the crowd in a green silk dress, managing everything with her usual quiet grace. "You did it?" she whispered when she passed me a glass of champagne. I started to answer, but then the sound hit me, a man's voice, too loud, too familiar. "Ryan." I turned toward the entrance. There he was, tux slightly undone. Mom right behind him, holding her clutch like a weapon. My father followed a step behind, looking uncomfortable but silent as ever. For a second, I thought I might be imagining them. But then Ryan's laugh rolled across the marble floor, the same cocky sound that used to fill our family dinners. "Guess word travels fast," Lydia murmured beside me. They weren't on the guest list. I knew that. Every name had passed through my hands personally. At the reception desk, the hostess smiled apologetically. "I'm sorry, sir, but we don't have a reservation under Voss." Ryan frowned, his voice rising. "Check again. It's for the Voss family. This is our name on the building, isn't it?" Margaret stepped forward, already irritated. "We were told this was a private family event." "I'm Mrs. Voss." The hostess glanced toward me, unsure. I set down my glass and walked over my heels, echoing against the floor. The room seemed to hush as I came closer. "Good evening," I said softly. Mom turned. For a heartbeat, she didn't recognize me. Hair swept back, white blazer eyes level. Then her mouth tightened. "Elena." Ryan smirked. "So this is your project, huh, cute? Thought you'd be working on something smaller." I smiled back. "It used to be small. Now it's standing." He looked around, unimpressed, pretending confidence that didn't reach his eyes. "Well, I think we deserve a table. We're family, right?" I nodded slightly to the hostess. "Please take them to the public lounge downstairs. It's walk-in only." Ryan blinked. What Mom's tone sharpened. "We're your family, Elena." I held her gaze. "You told me not to come back. I just kept my promise." Silence stretched between us. I could hear the soft piano in the background, the hum of people pretending not to stare. Ryan's jaw clenched. "You think this makes you better than us?" I stepped closer, close enough that my reflection filled his eyes. "No," I said quietly. "It just makes me free." Then I turned to the hostess. "If they'd like to stay, make sure they pay for their drinks." Their faces froze, shock, shame, disbelief all at once. I walked away before any of them could answer the click of my heels, fading into the music. Lydia met me halfway across the room. "They came uninvited," she whispered. "Exactly," I said. "Just like always." Later that night, the crowd thinned out. The music softened, drifting through the marble halls like a secret. I slipped away to the upper terrace heels in one hand, champagne glass in the other. From up there, I could see the whole city stretched beneath me, lights blinking like tiny heartbeats. Down below, through the glass roof, I caught a glimpse of Ryan and my parents still at the bar. They sat awkwardly stiff smiles, pretending nothing had happened. They didn't see me watching. For a long time, I just stood there breathing in the cold night air. It smelled like rain and steel and something else, freedom maybe. My phone buzzed, a text from Lydia. "You okay? They're still downstairs." I typed back, "Let them be, they'll figure it out." I leaned on the railing, tracing my finger along the cool glass. The reflections shimmered me, the city and the building I'd built from every bruise they left behind. A year ago, I was standing outside their house, too afraid to knock. Now they were standing outside mine, waiting for permission to come in. Funny how that works. I thought about calling Mom, about saying something gentle, something that would make her understand. But then I remembered the text she sent. Some places aren't meant for you. Maybe she was right. Maybe that house wasn't. Behind me, the automatic door slid open. Lydia stepped out, coat draped over her arm. "They're leaving," she said softly. I nodded. "Good." She handed me another glass, her smile small but warm. "So, what now?" I looked back down at the glowing letters above the entrance. The Atrium by Voss. My name, my work, my peace. I think I said I finally stopped building things to be invited into. From now on, I build them to stand on their own. Lydia clinked her glass against mine. "To that." We stood there for a moment, two silhouettes against the skyline. Then I turned toward the elevator, ready to go home. My phone buzzed one last time, an unknown number. A message. "Your place is beautiful." I didn't know. "Mom," I smiled. Set the phone face down on the railing and left it there for the night. Because some stories don't need replies. If you've ever had to build your own peace because the place you came from couldn't hold you, trust me, you're not alone. Share your story in the comments and hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one.